So, hello, everyone. Welcome to our event. This event is brought to you by Data Talks Club, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events. This is one of such events. And actually, this is one of the last events of this year. So yeah, so if you want to find out more about the events we have, you can go to the link in the description. You will not find many events right now there because, yeah, as I said, this is like we will have a few events this week, but we will not have anything next week. The week after that, I think we will have a 3 weeks break. So we will come back in January. But this is the link that you can check to see our events. And then, of course, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't done this, I don't know why you would not do this. You should go now below the video and subscribe. And then finally join our amazing Slack where we talk about different data things. Okay, so during today's presentation, you can ask any question you want. There is a link pinned in the live chat. So just go there, ask your question. And should I interrupt you when there is a question, or you prefer questions at the end?
We can do questions at the end.
Okay,
I think better.
So then we will cover all the questions at the end. So that's it from my side. So now the floor is yours.
Well, let me share my screen. Okay. So I think you can see my elephants now.
Yes, all 4 of them.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Great. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Nour. I'm applied scientist at Zalando in the Size and Fit team. And today I'll be talking to you about how we. So these elephants, they have some story. You can see them in different sizes, and it's one of the images we use for the team. Yeah, it has some nice story behind it. We were doing different teams presentations, and we called that Zafari at the time because it's Zalando, so it was that Zafari. And yeah, there the animals come in place, and yeah, they represent the main thing that we deal with every day in the team, sizes. So I will talk to you about the size and fit problem space and why we are tackling this problem, what's the opportunity behind it. We'll talk about some AI-specific challenges, so things that has to do with data science and how we deal with the data, so the key to all our AI systems. And I will also give you an overview of the algorithms or some of the algorithms that we have running in production to serve our customers. So before we do that, I'm gonna give you a quick overview of what is Zalando. So Zalando is a lead e-commerce fashion platform in Europe. We have around 38 million active customers and a lot of different brands, thousands of them, and around 700,000 items on the shop. And yeah, so we have a lot of data. We have a large impact with this huge customer base that we have. So what's the deal with size and fit? Why size and fit? Well, I'm sure you're familiar with such cases like this, such struggles where you're trying a piece of fashion item in the fitting room, even in the stores or at home, and it doesn't fit as you expected. This is very challenging in online context. So in stores, you can grab another size and try it on. In online context, this grabbing another size takes a bit of time. So actually half of the items that are bought online get returned. And almost 1/3 of these items are returned due to size and fit reasons. So you can imagine that addressing such a problem, especially on this scale, creates huge customer, business, and environmental impact. So one of our main focuses is really to stay sustainable and reduce the footprint that we have on the environment. So maybe you're wondering, like, why it's so complex? It shouldn't be like easy that you get the size on the fashion item and that's it. Actually, it's not. And the answer to this question, why is it so complicated, is really long. But I'm going to take you over through some main points why this is really challenging. So we'll start with one problem with the fashion size and fit nowadays. It's actually coming from mass production. So back in the days, people used to get all their fashion items from their local tailor, or someone in the family might be able to design them. And nowadays, it's not like that. You have manufacturers producing on large scale a lot of fashion items. And these manufacturers are really far away from the customers. They're very distant. They don't deal with the end customer right away. They sell to some other platforms or brands, and then they sell to the end customer. So they don't have this close interaction with customers. And most of the measurements that are used in designing the items can be coming from outdated statistics on the population, coming or collected from different occasions. It could be military or different data collection that happened in the past. So many of the measurements are actually outdated. So statistics are not super accurate to produce items. To make it a bit more complex, there is no uniform sizing convention. So different countries, different brands, depending on the item, if it's an upper body garment or lower body garment, you have different sizing systems to express the size of the item. This makes it more complex. Also, that vanity sizing. So vanity sizing is a concept where brands have certain customer type in their mind, and they control who buy these items by tweaking the sizing systems. So basically, the exact same measurements of an article could have different sizes on their labels, just because the brands have different customer segment in mind. Also, the multidimensionality of this problem. So garments are complex. They are in different dimensions. For example, jeans, they have the length and the waist. So this makes the problem more complex. And we can't deal with all the dimensions in the same way. So it's very different from one to the other. So with this, we reach to our team mission. So this is our mission. We want people to get the right fit. So we want to serve customers with advice that they get the right fit from the first time they purchase something on the platform. And just an overview of the team. We're a multidisciplinary team. We have different skill set on the team. We have business, we have product, engineers, and applied science. And today we're focusing on the applied science part, so the data science part. And I'm going to start off with some challenges that we have to deal with from data science perspective. And here are some challenges from the article side. So first, that there are different size systems. This is we talked about, but this is also across categories and brands and countries. And then the new articles that get onboarded every day on the platform. We have thousands of articles are activated. And for these new articles, we don't have any purchase or return data. So it's very difficult to judge them. And we call these items the cold start articles. And then comes the ambiguity or the low quality of the data. So fit data can describe how the item look like, and the same concept could be described in different terms. This makes the data very ambiguous and difficult to deal with. Also, the delay in the feedback that we get on the items. So because of the logistic part of the process, that you purchase something, it takes some time to get it to your place. and then you can try it out and then return it or give us feedback on the platform online. This can take a lot of time. So it's not restricted with time, and it's around 3 weeks at least that we get like the size feedback on the items. And then comes the customer side. So there are also some challenges in there. So there we have first that profiles can have different people behind them. So the same profile could belong to this whole household. So a family, maybe different people behind the same account. So it's very difficult to know the type of body that we're dealing with, because it could be multiple people. Also, the new customers that join the platform, similar to the new articles, they don't have purchase, they don't have returns. It's very difficult to give them recommendation when we have no history. So these we also call the cold start customers. There are other challenges with respect to the different behavior patterns across the different customer groups. So some customers are more open to share their data, and especially that we're talking about very sensitive data. So this is relevant to the body, and not everyone is open to share this kind of data. And also, some people don't take the size advice very seriously. So it's something very personal. Yeah, when you get this piece of advice, it's not so easy to say yes to it. So this is something that we also have to deal with. And finally, there is a big expectation from the customer side. So when they provide some data, they expect some explanation behind the advice they get, and they expect it to be very reliable. So there is high expectation and explanation expectation. So these are the data science challenges, let's say, on the both different sides, from the customer and the article. And now we can talk about data. So we start with the article data. Here, I'm going to give you an overview of the different data types that we are utilizing in different algorithms. So first, we have the purchase data, of course. So the items that are purchased and their sizes, and it's usually very sparse on the category level. So when we talk about one customer, what they bought in one category, it could be like a couple of items, not more. And there is also the return reasons. So what the feedback that we receive from the customers, what they bought and returned. And the relevant reasons for us in the team are size-related ones. So for example, it could be that the item was too big for them or too small. And again, I mentioned this before, that this data can be delayed, but on top of that, this data can be also very noisy because it's subjective. It's coming from the customer, so it's really dependent on how they perceive the size of it. So something that is too big for me might be a good fit for someone else. We also use the article images, so visual data and videos as well. So there are different images describing each article taken from different perspectives. We also have an in-house fitting lab. So this group of fashion experts, they create high-quality data sets describing size and fit of specific items. And they try things on, they give us very detailed feedback. This is very rich source of information, but of course you can imagine it's a bit limited. And we also have a unified fit taxonomy, which is a normalization layer that we created for describing fit and shape of garments. So we created this taxonomy that described fit and shape. And this was done with fashion experts. So to be able to generalize to all the categories of fashion items and all the different brands. And now we talk about the customer data. So from the customer side, customers have a space to express their fit and size preferences. So on the profile, you have a section called Your Size, and there the customers can communicate with us and say what fits them well, what didn't from their purchase, and if also they had something purchased for other people. And they can also express their fit preferences from items in their wardrobe. So they can tell us about something that they love, how it fits them, and the specific brand and the specific size from that. This helps us getting them engaged and also onboard them to the algorithm. So it could be treated like a purchase, basically. Also for very highly engaged customers, so we have this specific platform called Zalon. This is a service that you can subscribe to, provide information about your style and what preferences you have, and basically you get handpicked by a stylist a set of items that you can try on and send back what you don't like. So it's a box personalized to you and picked by stylists. And for Zalon customers, so they are usually very engaged customers. They are open to share more data, and there, because they have to share more information about themselves and their sizes with the stylists. There we have richer information about their size and fit. So they can provide different measurements from different body points and their weight, height, different data points about themselves. And of course, last year, we have grown our team to work on body measurements via images. So there will be this part where people could take pictures of themselves and get the body measurements. So this is also a different source of data that we're exploring. Okay. And now, after we talked about the different data types and the different challenges that we have, let's talk about some of the solutions that we have in place, some of the algorithms that we have, leveraging these different sources of data and addressing the challenges that we have. Okay. So we have actually two main use cases in the team. So two types of size advice that we provide. One that is article-centric. So it's based on the article, what we know about the article. And the other one is customer-centric. So it keeps the customer in the focus and gives the personalized advice, basically. The first one, the article-centric one, or article-based advice, is mainly based on what we know about the articles. So from the article data, from the return behavior, we give customers small hints, usually in the form of like a small notification that you get here. And it says that you can buy one bigger or one smaller than your usual from this specific article, based on our knowledge of the behavior of the article. And it can also say that you buy your usual size. So this doesn't depend on the customer themselves. It's very focused on what we know from the article behavior, their returns. And here, we also leverage different sources of information. So the return data is one main source. But also the other article data, I mentioned images before. So one of the solutions that we have is called what we call SizeNet. It uses the article images to predict if there is some sizing issues with the articles. So this solution is important to tackle the cold start articles. So there we don't have any sales or returns yet for new articles, and we only have the images. So we use them to give an early prediction. And how does the solution look like? So we have this teacher-student approach based on transfer learning, and we use the weak annotations coming from the customer returns to train this whole framework. So let's go a bit into details. So the first part, what we call the teacher here, is a statistical model. It's based on binomial likelihood, giving historical articles. The teacher learns from this weak data how to classify an article if it has a size issue or not. So comparing the return rate, the size-related return rate of an article to the expected returns from its categories, and also considering the specific sales period of this item, you can, the teacher can already give some estimation. And there we, of course, have a confidence score, if this estimation is confident or not. And after having this teacher in place, we add the student part. So the student doesn't have access to the sales and returns. It mimics the real situation where we will have only the image of the article. And it's actually a convolutional neural network that extracts the article features. So it has a backbone part using transfer learning, so pre-trained network that gets the article features, the bottleneck features. And from there, we train multi-layer perceptron that try to predict the teacher labels. So in training this framework, we also weight the loss of the student with the confidence level coming from the teacher. So the teacher will basically teach the student part which articles, given their images, of course, which articles will have some sizing issue behavior. This is very effective for large-scale data. So it tackles this cold start problem when we have a lag between the return data and the article being onboarded. And of course, we leverage the human feedback as well. So I mentioned before this fitting lab that we have. The fashion experts provide this very high quality data, but it's limited to a specific size. It can be very big data set. So what happens is that we have the two different sources of data together used as priors. So what comes from the SizeNet, the teacher-student framework, and what comes from the fitting station, the fitting lab, both combined to shape beta prior. And we have, again, the binomial likelihood to predict what we call the size flags. So what you saw on the first screenshot on this part from the size advice, we call a size flag. We give a flag to the customer that this article is bigger than the usual, or this article is smaller than the usual. And now we go to the other type of size advice that we have. So here we're talking about customer-centric size advice. So this is very centralized on the customer, and it's personalized to what they bought, what we know about them, and it's only specific to them. So here we're using mostly two types of algorithms. One that is using existing customers, it's focused for existing customers, and another that is focused on new customers that just joined the platform. So the type of advice that you get here on the shopping platform, this screenshot shows you the form of the advice. So we give a specific size that we think that the customer should buy because it's gonna fit them. So for example, for this pair of jeans, we tell them to buy 30 by 32. So behind this, as I mentioned before, there are multiple algorithms. The first ones are dealing with existing customers, so customers that already have purchase history in place. So the first type of recommender here, what we call the baseline recommender, is very strong statistical model. You know, baselines based on statistical models are usually robust. So here we're using the purchase history of the customer and the category of the query article, so the jeans from the last example, and we give as an output recommended size. And the algorithm is looking into the statistical information we know about the article, what we know about the brand, and also from the shopping behavior of the customer. It tries to build a customer size distribution and sees where this new article would fit into that distribution. And therefore, it gives a prediction of the size of the customer should buy. Another type of recommender that we have in place for also existing customers is based on deep learning system. It's trained using also the customer purchase history and some features of the article that we have in the query time. And again, it gives as an output the recommended size that we think they should buy. For new customers, I mentioned before this Zalon customers, where we have detailed information about their sizing preferences. The input is coming from this questionnaire that they fill out when they join the platform. And here we're using gradient boosted trees to giving a customer data from the questionnaire, what they have in their preferences, and the brand of the query article, we predict a size that they should buy. And what you see here on the right-hand side is the performance of this algorithm. So the baseline is the one I explained in the slide before. So the baseline recommender that is depending on the purchase history. It's usually takes some time until it's efficient because it needs more purchase in the history. And what you see here, that the blue line, the cold start recommendation for Zalon customers, it has a good performance much before the baseline recommendation. So it takes around 15 to 20 purchases from the baseline to catch up with this cold start record. We also, I mentioned this before, that one type of data that we collect is to onboard new customers. So this is a recommendation based on basically one reference item that we get from the customer. It's one of their favorite items that fits them very well. They provide the brand and the size that they wear and fits them very well. Using only this one item, we have also a recommender system in place that start to provide them an advice based on that. For the deep learning recommender, we have a meta-learning approach in place. So each customer is represented as a task from their purchase history. And we learn article and size embeddings embedded using the linear regression. So at the test time, when we get a new customer, we take all the purchases from the new customer and project the customer into this common embedding space and provide the size that is closest to it. So basically, we train the embedding layers to learn this embedding space that brings together the customers and the sizes that they bought. And this plot here is also showing the performance of this deep learning model. So ingesting the different customer and article data is very easy in this deep learning meta learning approach. And we could also include the customer data provided by the questionnaire. So if they express their size and fit preferences using this questionnaire I mentioned before from Zalon, we can ingest just this data as well, not only the purchases, very easily using this approach. And there we have the customer also included in the loop of the training. So all their data they provided, it's already included in there. And we also see in this plot that such approach is achieving better performance. So that was it from my side. To summarize, I gave you an overview of the size and fit problem space, what kind of challenges we deal with from the data science perspective, and what types of data that we collect, and the different solutions that we have in place to serve customers in different size advice types. So maybe we can take questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for this great summary. That was quite comprehensive. So I'm just wondering what happens with items that are returned. So
that's a very good question.
What do you do with them?
Yeah, I'm not super involved in the warehouses, obviously, but I've been on a tour, so I've seen what happens in there. Different articles are, of course, returned, and there are different teams that have a look at them, and they go through a process. Basically, they get cleaned, and I'm not sure how the recycling works. If there's something like pretty damaged, there is a recycling process, but I'm not sure of the details. Yeah, for different types of qualities, they just get cleaned and repackaged. It's exactly what happens in the offline store, but on a very different scale. So in the offline store, you see people trying things on and they put them back, and then the salesperson, they have to repackage it and make it look nice again. So it's a very similar process, but on a very different scale, and you have different teams. It's a pipeline, basically.
Mm-hmm. Because 50% of returns, that's a huge number. Like basically every second package is returned, right?
Yeah, and that's these numbers are not, I mean, this is general for online in fashion, right? So it's really global problem that we have to address on a very big scale. And it's different from one domain to another. So in fashion, it's different from other places, but fashion specifically is very challenging. I know many friends share that they don't buy online for fashion because it's very difficult. But I think with the pandemic, we're becoming more experts in that.
Yeah, I started buying online, and I'm not coming back to the physical store because it turned out to be more convenient than I expected.
Yeah.
I noticed like when you were showing the graphs, the plots with accuracy. So I noticed that the accuracy is like around 64, something like this, right? And so which is like, if you think about other problems, it's not a super impressive number, but I guess here every extra percent that you get in, reducing this number of returns is helpful, right? So here 64%, even though it might not seem like a great model, it already brings like great impact, right?
Yeah, definitely. So every percentage point is a big number on reducing the returns, the amount of returns that it reduces. And also what is important to keep in mind is the amount of options that you have. So when we say size recommendation reach 64% or 70% of accuracy, it means that the one size among the 10 options that you had was picked. So it's also very relevant to the amount of options that you have. And this is all averaged. So in different categories, it can be very different. So some categories, they use the alpha sizes like small, medium, large, and some other categories like jeans, you have many more options. So it's all averaged and normalized based on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a related question, like how this size net that you have, how much it returned the, like it reduced the return rate, or what kind of metric do you use to actually see that this model is successful when you roll it out, when you apply it online?
Yeah. So as a standalone algorithm, it's not a product by itself. It's used as a prior. Maybe I can go back to the slide and show you how the whole picture look like. So with this size flags that I showed, we have two sources of the prior, and SizeNet is one of them. The performance of the SizeNet itself is around, I think, if I remember correctly, the accuracy is around 70% or 69 or something. And it's basically choosing between two choices, like having size issue or no size issue. And by itself, it doesn't provide a direct size advice, because like knowing that there is something that might have size issue, there's a probability of having size issue there, we can't say much. And that's why we ingested in this whole system what we call the size flags, is that you have these two sources of prior and you have the return data at the same time, and combining them in this Bayesian framework, you get the posterior probability at the end. And there we can say to the customers, this might be too big or too small, based on what we know from all these different sources.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, I wanted to ask you, so I was trying to take notes of all the models you described. So the first model was this teacher-learner model, right? And so this was SizeNet, right? So in this model, as I understood correctly, these formulas, was it Bernoulli distribution, or which one was it? Yeah, binomial distribution, right? So here, what you want to do is you have some sort of expected return in general, and then you see that some items are returned more often than, in general, like on average. And so basically what you want to predict is based on an image. You want to predict if this item will be returned more often than on average, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it's going to be off the distribution, basically. So not only the average point, but mostly like the whole distribution in the category. And we see if it's really off from there. So this label that you get, like the weak label by the teacher, is produced using this binomial likelihood. And it's comparing the expected return rate of this category of the item during the same sales period. And it sees if this return rate of the article is off this average, like with the standard deviation, basically. So if it's really off the distribution, and it provides this confidence score using the binomial likelihood.
Yeah, clear. Thank you. I'm curious, how does it look like? Does somebody wear it and then other person takes a picture and then it goes through the neural network, or how it's exactly used?
Yeah, so we have the people from the team
sizing team, right?
Yeah, but these are not the images that we use, because I mentioned this fitting lab. I can go
exactly.
back to the slide. They do this fitting and create this very valuable data sets, but it's all on a limited scale. So they have limited capacity, because it's also it's a not so small team, but it's also limited. So they can fit only specific amount of articles. But what we leverage for SizeNet, so there they provide very detailed feedback and what we call like a high fidelity kind of data. So it's very detailed measurements and very high quality. So it's coming from experts. But what we leverage in the SizeNet is the article images that you see on the website, because they're available on large scale, and they're available from the first day that the article is activated. So once merchants get items and they want to upload them on the platform, they need to have this kind of images. And these are also data produced inside the company. So we have the studios, they produce this among many other data sets that they produce is the images. So they have professional models, they try things on. And what we use in the SizeNet is this pack shot image I'm showing on the left. So this is usually without the human model wearing it. So really to enable the network to focus only on the article, there we are using only the standard way of shot, basically what we call it the pack shot.
Okay, and so the input to the model is the only this pack shot, or you also give it like the size or XL or something like this, or it figures everything? Okay, and then based on the image, it knows, okay, like this thing, like the sleeves are maybe like here in this picture we have long sleeves, but maybe sometimes, okay, like a system, maybe the sleeves are short. Maybe you need like a bigger size than usual, right?
Yeah. So in our analysis for this model, it's actually learning the interrelation between the different dimensions of the article. It's trying to see, as you said, like if these different measurements on specific parts of the article are very different to the usual from other articles. So it's learning the pattern between these different measurements.
Yeah, thanks. And the other model you mentioned, this XGBoost one, or was it gradient boosting one? So yeah, I think it was for people for who you already have the history. So the recommendation was like, you need to try this particular size. Do you have like a model for each brand, or how exactly, or for each article? How does it really work? Or the input to this model, you have like the profile of the person, profile of the item, right? And then the output is the size, or how does it work exactly?
Yeah, exactly. So we have the data from like this questionnaire showing here on this slide. You have the different answers from the customer. And for customers that have both Zalon account and Zalando account, that they bought things and they kept specific sizes, we can train this model that tries for a specific article, like query article. It predicts given the customer data, it predicts the size. So it only output the size for the article, basically. And at test time, of course, you don't need like both purchases in Zalon and the Zalando. You just need the questionnaire answers, and then it works.
Okay. Yeah, and then it's one model for all the items, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
of course, it can, like, it's different based on the if it's upper part garment or lower part garment. So we have to do some different trainings in there, because it's different data, different stuff. But it's just a model.
Yeah. So let's say for t-shirts, you have a certain number of sizes, or maybe not t-shirts. It's a too simple example. But for jeans, you have these dimensions, right? X times Y, and so basically the output of the model is you have like quite a few different classes. Like each of this combination is a class, and then it's basically a multi-class classification problem, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, got it. I noticed that we have quite a few questions. Maybe I can share my screen so it's easier for you to read the questions.
Sure. Stop sharing them.
Okay, so let me share my screen. So yeah, let's start with the first one. Where do you see the largest headroom for the customer-centric size advice? I'm not sure what headroom is. Maybe room for, do you know what headroom is?
No, not really, but I think
maybe
it
room
could be
for improvement.
Room for improvement. This is what I would guess. So yeah, I think the thing that we're working very hard on is this body measurements. So having more detailed information on the customer side to really provide very personalized advice. Also, when it comes to fit preferences, this is also very active area that we're working on to not only understand the measurements and the bodies from the customer side, but also understand their fit preferences. So it's all like, actually it's all very connected. Like this is something that we often say in the team, that the problem is very complex and there is no one solution that fits everything. So we need to explore very different directions to give the right advice based on the context, because depending on the customer, on the article, on the whole context, it can be very different.
Yeah, indeed. And you also mentioned at the beginning that not everyone is willing to actually share the measurements with you.
Exactly.
Right? So what's the, do you know maybe the percentage of people who actually want to share the measurements with you?
So the measurement part is not live yet.
Okay.
So that's why we don't have numbers. But I mean, it's really depending on the engagement, on how you see fashion advice very critical for you. So some people don't really mind it. They're very open to this kind of data. They want the right advice. Basically, they struggle a lot with the experience, so they're willing to share. It's very complicated as well. It depends on many factors, I would say.
Yeah. So right now, you mainly like, let's say if somebody has an account in Zalon, then you have the measurements, right? So this or questionnaire that they filled in, right?
Yes.
So, and then you can use it. Okay. So then the next question we have is figuring out the consumer size using purchasing history can be misleading, since the customer may be buying items for third parties. So I think you mentioned that sometimes there are two people. So for example, my wife sometimes buys things for me on Zalando. So yeah, how do you deal with cases like that?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and it's one of the challenges I mentioned. So we look basically, we try to model the customers, if possible, using their purchase history as multiple people. So this we keep in mind that there might be different people, so we might be seeing different distributions. So for example, I also use the same account with my husband, and we both have different size distribution from our purchases. So this could be captured from the algorithm because it's flexible to introduce different distributions if it sees very far off sizes, then they are modeled into two different people or three. But if the multiple people are buying very similar sizes, like let's say me and my flatmate, where we have similar body measurements and we buy very similar sizes, then this can't be captured. And the way around it is to have this conversation or like this space for the customers to express that. So using this part, I showed from the profile, like your sizes part of the profile, people can say that they bought this for someone else. And once we have this explicit information, we can exclude it from the learned sizes, basically.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you try to recommend sizes for kids. Like, let's say you have a profile, so there is the wife, the husband, and also their kid, because kids grow, right? So parents maybe don't grow as much, but kids do. So do you exclude kids from your recommendations? Like when you do this, when you try to separate an account into like multiple personas, sort of?
Yeah, kids are very challenging parts. Yeah, I think we had multiple analysis and projects working on the kids' shoes, for example, because as you said, they grow and they grow super fast, and shoes sizes, they change drastically. So at the moment, we don't provide size advice for kids because it's complex. But yeah, it's also excluded because it's basically different sizing system that you see there. So it's also detected by the sizing systems.
So basically, when you prepare your data set, you only keep like the closest clothes for adults, right? So you exclude all the kids. And the second one is also interesting. Do you do sizing recommendations for bags and other accessories?
No, not really. But this could be interesting. I think it's more like preference recommendation, not size. So there are recommendations for style recommendation. I think if you go to the shop, you can see different like placeholders for recommendations. So when you click on one item, you get similar items, but also on the homepage, based on what you viewed, you also get things that fits well with them. So there are different types of recommendations on the platform, but it's not only from our team. So size and fit is one part, but there are many other stuff. There are outfits recommendations, so things that combine different items to create an outfit. And there are style recommendations, basically, that would be very good for accessories and bags and all the other categories as well. But yeah, specifically because accessories and bags don't have sizes usually.
Okay, so it's just one size fits all.
Yeah, that's the usual thing, right? I think once they start to produce bags with different sizes, or I don't know, necklaces with different sizes, we will have more tasks to do.
Yeah, I guess potentially you can ask people, hey, what do you want to carry? Like, do you just want to carry your, I don't know, cell phone, your laptop, or I don't know, your skis or bicycle or whatever? Like then you.
Really nice idea, actually. Yeah, depending on
Like,
the luggage that you have.
Yeah. How does the model react to the current fashion trends?
Yeah. So fashion trends are encoded in the sales period, let's say, right? So when we are considering specific, like for example, the article-based advice I mentioned, or even the customer-based advice, both they consider the sale period of the item. So when we provide recommendation, it's all relevant to what is happening now. You can't use data from 2 years ago. So the trends will be encoded in there, but also things like oversized, like, I don't know, boyfriend jeans, or like hoodie stuff that are very trendy, and people are buying more and more of this oversized stuff. You can't keep telling them this is too big, because like 2 people return them, right? So it's all encoded also in the other types of data that we use. So the fit and shape I mentioned before, these are 2 dimensions describing the articles. Fit is more about the distance between the article and the person wearing the article. So it could be tight, it could be relaxed or loose and oversized. This is the fit. And the other thing that we also established is describing the shape. So the contour of the garment itself. For example, in dresses, maybe you're familiar with A-line shape or H-line shape. So this kind of shapes that represent the silhouette of the item. And this kind of data we also use to improve the recommendation, because if we know that it's intended to be oversized, then it's also expected to look like that, right?
Okay, and I guess fewer customers return it saying, hey, it didn't fit me because it's too large, because they expect it to be large, so they just don't return. I think you mentioned this at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And also there are other products that I didn't mention because they are not very algorithmically related. But we have, for example, on the product page, when you view a product, you see the size and the height of the model wearing the article. And there, if you see it already that it's intended to be oversized and that the model is wearing, I don't know, 38 or 40, and then you know how to relate it for yourself. So there are other sources of information that can aid the customer when they make their decision.
Yeah, I don't know if you tried OpenCV, did you?
To scan the body type of the customer to get better, more personalized model. So from the customer side, we don't have images of their body yet.
Okay.
So we're exploring this measurement part to get the images and get the measurements, but it's not live yet. So we're working on this to get the measurements from the image of the customer.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's probably also difficult to make a customer, take a picture of themselves, like, because it's probably not easy. Like somebody else has to, make a picture of them, right? They also need to go through troubles of doing that. Okay.
Yes. So the part of our team that we grew with last year, that's the Zurich office that we have now, from part of Size and Fit. They have been working on this solution. They were a startup before the acquisition. And it's basically taking different images of the customer. And you don't have to ask someone to do the picture, but it has some instructions that you can put the phone on the side and make the image basically.
Yeah, I think I accidentally closed one of the questions. Yeah, so this one. So do you use GANs at Zalando for producing images? Do you know anything about that?
Nothing live yet, but there are different research papers using GANs to produce images, like putting outfits together. You can have a look on the research page on Zalando website. So we have research.
Zalando research, right?
Yeah.
So this one.
Yeah, this one.
And then publications, right?
Yes.
And then if I look for GAN.
I'm not sure if it's going to be called GAN. Maybe you can try generative or something.
Yeah. High resolution detail generation. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, there are others, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess the question is not whether you use GAN or not, but more like, I'm not sure I completely understand it. Maybe you do. Isn't relying on having real models trying out, this articles limiting the model?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So for the size and fit objective, we don't use generated images. We're using real images, if that's the question.
Yeah, I guess this is what you eventually want to do. You want to see how a real item will look on a real person, right?
Yeah, that's exactly the challenge. So there are many ideas around the generative models, but it's really challenging when we are talking about something generated to understand how it's really gonna simulate the reality from the measurements. So it can be appealing, like you see many of these try on GAN stuff that they wrap things on the generated model. It can look very appealing. That's no artifacts. It looks real, but whether if it's gonna real or like if the measurements will match this in reality, this is a very different question.
I am wondering, like, how would you make a gun that puts an undersized item on you that someone
Well, I think if you look at these different papers, you will see even if the item is undersized or oversized, it's gonna look like the average item on the body, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they don't have this information explicitly included.
That's not what you're interested in for this particular purpose, right? So you want to see if item will fit or it will be like squeezing you like a lemon, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like the shape of the body, you can change that easily, right?
Yeah, maybe let's take the last one. So do you use any digital blueprints? I have no idea what it is. Maybe it's specific to clothing. Do you know what is it?
Designing items, basically, you have this digital design part, right? That they basically have the different parts of the garment all designed using digital software. So you have their specific measurements and the blueprint describing how the item will be put all together. So the different patterns, the different parts of the garment. Well, we looked into that, but it's very challenging to get this type of data from the different brands and different manufacturers. So this data is usually not enclosed at all. Mm-hmm. So there are very, very few, I think, shops that are, I'm not sure how many brands are doing this, to be honest, but this data is not easily accessible. That's mm-hmm. the short answer. If this was accessible, it would be really much easier problem to solve, that you have the detailed information on the article size, how it's going to look like, and then you just wrap it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, but you at least have this, how do you call it, pack shot, right? Do all merchants require to have a pack shot when they create an item?
Yes. So of course, the visual information is a must to have an item on the platform. You need images, and there are many other actually data points that we collect on the article side before it gets activated. There is minimal kind of information that is required, that it can't go online, and like the images is a must also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. So if somebody wants to ask a question about this thing, what's the best way for them to find you, to reach out to you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and I think I didn't put my email on the slides. I forgot, but basically it's my name, zalando.de. So if you have any questions, you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's I think the best way. Mm-hmm.
It's with a dot, right? So first name dot last name at zalando.de or com. What's the DE? Okay, zalando.de. Okay, thanks a lot. That was a great presentation, like quite a nice overview of all the methods. Thanks a lot. Thanks for finding time to talk to us, to share this with us. And thanks everyone for watching, for attending, and for asking questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and looking forward for the next events.
Yeah. Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
You too.